I first contacted Rocky De La Fuente, the Reform Party's 2016 nominee for President of these United States. Rocky, thank you very much for being on PRIMO NUTMEG today. I appreciate that.
Thank you very much for calling me. I love that state. I've been doing business in your state for over 22 years.
So tell listeners, why did you decide to run for president this year?
I saw Donald Trump getting up on the microphone and insulting every man, woman, and child. I saw him getting up on the microphone and insulting her fellow candidate for arena. I saw him insulted all the Hispanics. I saw him insulting the Pope, the Muslims, the Syrians. And I said to myself, I cannot believe that Obama has not said anything. I cannot believe Hillary has not said anything. I cannot believe the Mexican president has not said anything. I mean, he just basically insulted everybody in a wholesale fashion and included every man, woman, and child. And that's when I said somebody has to stop this man, because if he does not stop him, we cannot complain to what happened in Germany in 1935, 1940, when all of a sudden in 1940, Hitler committed all the crimes he committed, basically with the Jewish and what he did in Austria.
You were running for the Democratic nomination to stop Donald Trump, and unfortunately, for whatever reason, Hillary Clinton became the Democratic nominee. Why at that point have you not decided to back Hillary Clinton? Why have you instead decided to continue running as a third-party candidate?
When I was in New Hampshire, the DNC stole my votes. When I was in Texas, they committed election fraud. When I was in Nevada, they hid the ballots, and only 12,500 people voted in Nevada. 12,500 people. Hillary won Nevada with a lousy 6,500 voters from Nevada. Sanders came in second with 5,500. I had to qualify to be in the ballot in Nevada, like I am right now, with over 15,000 petitions. The people of Nevada were not allowed to vote. That's anti-America. That's anti-democratic. So one of the reasons I decided to stay in the race is very simple. My party, the Democratic Party, the party that I represented in 1992 as the highest ranking Hispanic in the 92 convention that we elected Bill Clinton, my party is not the same party. That party is corrupt. The party has been corrupted by people like Debbie Wasserman Schultz. And those people have to be made accountable, because what they're doing is election fraud, and that's a felony. But anyway, going forward on the election, at this particular moment, we're less than 6 days away. I do not know if you know what happened in 1824. Americans were able, using the 12th Amendment of the Constitution, elected a president that was not elected by the popular vote and did not receive the majority of the Electoral College. That could happen again in 2016. If Hillary does not get to 270 and she's short at 268, and if Trump is short at 250, and some other minor parties happens to get the other electors, we could recreate the same scenario that happened when John Quincy Adams became the President of the United States. So if, for example, your listeners, which I know there are a lot of them, if they happen to agree that they would like to vote for me in Nevada, I can get those gorgeous 6 electoral votes in Nevada. Alaska, I worked very hard in Alaska. I was in Sitka, I was in Juneau, I was in Anchorage. If I'm able to get the people in the people in Alaska to vote for me, I would love to have those 3 electoral votes. And at the same token, if I happen to win Montana, that's another 3 votes. So 3, 3, and 6 is 12. That's 12 votes that Hillary did not get, 12 votes that Trump did not get. If Evan McMillan happens to win Utah, he gets 6 votes. If Gary Johnson wins New Mexico, he gets 9 votes. If we allow Jill to cooperate and have her take Colorado, North Dakota, so there's a strategy that if you go to my webpage, Rocky2016.com, will tell you what needs to happen so we do not get settled. We do not get stuck with Dumb and Dumber.
And I honestly think that is a good strategy. I've had Jill Stein on the show before, and I actually asked her why doesn't the Green Party and the Libertarian Party get together, since there seems to be some areas of agreement. Have you been talking to these other third-party candidates?
I did. I talked to Daryl Castle. I invited him to a summit. I told him what the summit could be, so we can all join and find out that we can join as parties, and he said I'm willing to do so. I did meet Gloria La Riva, which qualified in California, and there was a beautiful free and equal debate in Colorado. I was expecting to Gary Johnson and to Jill to show up, and there were no shows. We need to take back our democracy. We need to restore and repair our democracy. But you cannot do it if your vote does not count. You cannot do it if you happen to have election fraud. You cannot do it if they steal the elections, if they steal the ballots, if they manipulate the votes after after you have earned those votes. I can show you time and time again how they stole the votes from me in New Hampshire, North Carolina, in Texas, Ohio. I can show you how they did it to Bernie in Kentucky and California. I can show you that Bernie physically won the Democratic nomination, but they stole it from him and from the people that gave him his hard-earned support. And why did we get stuck with Hillary? Because Debbie Wasserman Schultz did not allow anybody else to participate. If we get Trump, he's got certain ideas that I like. Unfortunately, our country is called United States, and I want to make focus on the word united. Trump believes divided states. He wants to divide to conquer, and he's going to create so much hate within America. He's going to have all the different minorities fighting each other, and all the majorities with the minorities fighting each other, and he's going to create a nightmare with Mexico and all Latin America. He's going to create a nightmare with the 12 million illegals. He's going to create a nightmare that we were seeing with the rest of the world. And all of a sudden, his ego is so high that when he gets a phone call or he reads a newspaper article from Russia or from Syria or from Argentina or from the Pope, he'll say the first stupid thing that comes in that mind, not knowing that it has effects on the world and especially at the young generations of our country. We need somebody that's able to think before he speaks. And Mr. Trump first speaks, then he thinks, and then he backs the stupidity he said in the first place.
That's true. You brought up Russia there, and if I could just get to that, because honestly, that is my main concern if Hillary Clinton does get elected, just because the Democratic Party seems to largely have gotten a lot more hawkish on Russia. The mainstream media, which kind of leans left, has been very hawkish on Russia lately. And I agree with you that Donald Trump has a bad temperament and could, theoretically go to war with anyone. But are you at all concerned about Hillary Clinton's stance on Russia, she said about Syria that what's at stake in Syria is Russian aggression?
You need to understand that we already went through the Cold War, okay? And that cost a lot of money, which is part of the $19 trillion. And the World War did not benefit anybody. But at the same token, you don't have to win every war. And when you're playing chess, there's something that's called a stalemate. Now, here we're talking about who's going to win, Syria or Russia. Folks, we need to be able to maybe have a tie. And maybe the United States can basically try to orchestrate or manage or to negotiate a tie. Because we do not need more human lives lost and more misery around the world. Now, the Constitution of the United States does not say we have to defend the world. It says we have to defend ourselves from the world, not to go fight wars.
I guess my last question, too, just because you brought up the national debt a couple times, and you also brought up the 1824 election, which I believe had Andrew Jackson in it. What is your stance on...
That was Mr. How do you call Mr. Adams? John,
he won.
Yeah.
Right. But in any case, the Federal Reserve and monetary policy, what is your stance there?
Okay, the question is quite simple. We today owe $20 trillion. And of course, who is the person that owes the most amount of money in the United States? Is the federal government. And who do we owe it to? To Japan and to the rest of the world. Normally, the way a president has been able to control the economy is by raising or lowering its interest rates. And that's a good effect to be able to stimulate jobs. I believe that what you're going to hear, it's probably the first time you heard, but I believe we should reduce interest rates in the United States for the next 10 years at 0%. 0%.
They're essentially at zero now, aren't they?
Well, no, they're not. They're not at 0%. That's basically the marker they use. If you go to the banks, you have 4%, 5%. There's a huge difference between 0 and 4% what you're able to get a loan. But I would basically tell the world, folks, we're going to pay 0% because the number one person that pays that interest rate is the United States government. And it's not really them that wants to pay the money. It's us, the ones that we pay through our taxes. So I would put the interest rate at 0, and then I would try to stimulate growth. Try to stimulate growth to maybe 4 or 5, maybe a 6%, which, by the way, is unheard of for an economy of our size to be able to grow at a 4, 5, 6%. But if we're going to grow, we're going to need to create 32 million new jobs. In the 12 million people that are currently in this country, we're going to need them because they do jobs that 90% of Americans don't want to do.
But again, just to bring it back to the central bank, I'm just again curious about this because Andrew Jackson, he was actually able to pay off the national debt in the 1830s by abolishing the second bank of the United States. So do you think that there should be a central bank? Do you think that there's anything that's wrong with the Federal Reserve System, with essentially a banking cartel that has a monopoly on printing currency?
I don't believe in monopolies. One of the biggest monopolies we have in the United States happened to the Federal Deposit Insurance Corporation. It's an insurance company that controls our banks, and there's people within the FDIC that are basically entrenched there, and they basically try to tell banks what they can lend and they cannot lend to. And all it is an insurance company. We need to open up the FDIC and then open up to other insurance companies so banks basically are able to be competitive. But at the same token, you talk about what are we going to do with the Federal Reserve? There's somebody else out there, a private corporation that prints the money. Well, guess what? We need to understand, can that particular entity, can there be competition? Nothing that's purely 100% monopoly can be good for anybody. Okay? Now, I do not know if the Federal Reserve is something, I'm not 100%, I do not understand this subject in its entirety. I do not know if it started with the Medicis in Italy, then it went to the Rothschilds in France, and eventually went to the Rockefellers. I have no idea who is actually behind the Federal Reserve. But can you believe that there could be a private entity that basically controls how much money is printed and to whom? There's something fundamental wrong with that.
Rocky, we're almost out of time here. I just was wondering if maybe you could tell our listeners once again why they should vote for you.
It's quite simple. If we had Ronald Reagan or John Kennedy, I would ask them to vote for Ronald Reagan or for John Kennedy. But when you're looking at Hillary and Donald, I believe I'm more logical. I believe I am more refined. I will think before I speak. And those are two terrible choices that two major parties gave us. But because I'm not able to go longer, because I love this conversation, I would appreciate if you and your audience can go to Rocky2016.com.
Well, Rocky de la Fuente, Reform Party candidate for President of the United States, thank you very much for being on Primo Nutmeg, and good luck on November 8th.
Thank you very much. And I will, whenever you
Thanks,
want
Rocky.
me prior to November or after November, be more than happy to come to be left to be in your show again.